Hello once again. We are in Chapter 11, Inheritance and Polymorphism, and this will be our last discussion for this particular chapter. For this lecture, we're just going to talk about modifiers. This will be a brief lecture. I'll just quickly talk about the modifiers that are mentioned in this chapter. The first modifier is public, and we are all familiar with public by now. Anytime we create a member or a method, we can declare him as a public. And what that means is any class user, no matter where that class user is, has access to it. We can also use protected. So this is a new keyword we're introducing today. And when we use the word protected, what we're saying is if you are inside a different package, then the only way you can access it is through inheritance. So for example, let's say I'm the class creator, and I have a vehicle class, and I have a protected member speed, and I put this inside of a package. So I call it a package Dr. Jones. Let's say your package is student, so you import me in your .java file. So you have a class called bicycle, and inside your bicycle class you import me, but you don't extend me. Okay, so your bicycle class doesn't extend vehicle. Well, in that particular case, you don't have access to anything that I have protected. Now, if you were to extend it, then you have access to anything that is protected. Another modifier is default. This is where we leave the modifier off. There is no word for the modifier. It's just a blank or empty space. In this particular case, members and methods are only accessible if they are in the same class or in the same package. And the final modifier is private. In this case, private, you can only access a private member or method if you are inside that same class. So I don't expect for you to memorize it. It's important to know. If I were you, I would try to either capture this with notes or take a picture of it and just put it aside so you can always go back to it very quickly if you need to. And then we'll go on to our last modifier, which will then conclude the presentation. This is final. So final is another keyword, and I can use final in multiple ways. The first way, as you can see on the screen, final in front of a data field or a class member makes that member a constant. So if I say final static int my int equals 5, the final says I cannot change that number or change the contents of that variable. He has to remain 5 at all times. And in most cases, just for conventional purposes, we would put in our final members in all caps. For some reason, I didn't do that in this case, but that would be the conventional way of doing it. It indicates that this is a constant that cannot be changed. Would Java complain if you did not, or if you refrain from putting in uppercase? Well, the answer is no. If I put this in my Java file now, this would work. Java would have a problem if I later on try to change it. It would tell me that that's not permissible. But most cases when you're looking at Java files and you see something in all caps, that typically means this guy cannot be changed. We can also use final as a local variable. This is when we're inside of a method, and in this case it makes that local variable a constant. We can also put final in front of a class, public final class my class, for example. When we do that, then we're saying that class cannot be extended. In other words, an inheritance cannot be done for this particular class. I believe the book mentioned the math class is a class that cannot be extended. And the final method, and the final way we can use final is for methods. We can put a final in front of a method, and what that means is that method cannot be overwritten by its subclasses. So I may want you to extend my class as a class creator. I may want my class to be extended, but I may not want you to override a particular method or a set of methods. In those cases, I will put the word final so that you cannot override them in your subclasses. So that will now conclude our discussion on Chapter 11, and we will move on to Chapter 12.